Welcome to the Man-Ology Project podcast. I am your host, Quentin Crumby, and on this channel, we're going to be discussing what true manhood looks like as we understand our value, our identity, and our purpose as men using godly principles. Now let's get to it. Hey, welcome back to the Man-Ology Project podcast, where I'm your host, Quentin. And I'm so happy to be back in the new year. We've got a couple of episodes in the bag. So I'm extremely excited about what we have for this year. And I want to just kind of start this year off the right way. My son is a high school student athlete. Has been playing basketball for quite some time now. He's enjoying his senior year. And so I thought it would be nothing better than to talk about the coaches. You know, we give these coaches permission to take part of our kids' lives, our sons and our daughters' lives. And, you know, we're teaching one thing, Christian principles and values and morals at our home. And we would love for that to actually transcend right across, even into their athletic, dreams. But we find that some coaches, they're out for the win. And so what I wanted to do is kind of open up our minds, and to kind of look a little bit into a particular mentoring program that is actually putting a lot of stress on coaches mentoring the right way, God's way. So what I had to do is I had to go get a good friend of mine, Mr. I want to call him Coach because he's been in basketball for so long, but I'll let him tell his own story. But a good friend of mine, Glynn Blackwell, is joining me today as a co-host on today. What's going on, Glynn?
What's going on, my man Q? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Glad to have you on here, man. And like I said, Mr. Blackwell, it comes from a basketball background of his own, so he understands all things about coaching, being coaching. He has young men he has some sons that are also into basketball, and so I'm gonna let him dig into that too as well. But I really want to just bring to the forum. I'm always trying to figure out a way to talk to coaches because they must get an understanding that we give them permission to make these deposits into our sons and our daughters. And They have to be very careful on what you deposit in, because it makes or breaks them. Whether they believe it or not, they do have a great impact on them. So I got Glynn here. I'm about to step to the side, and I want him to kind of really fill us in. Just kind of give him a little bit background on what your sports, and like I said, he's a father, he's a husband. So just go ahead and give him a little bit.
Well, thanks, Quentin, for allowing me to be a part of your Man-Ology project and your podcast. And I've had a chance to view a couple of them.
Yeah.
And when you started it, I said, man, what an awesome thing, praise the Lord. And what a platform that God has given you, and an idea and creativity to be able to use such a platform to talk to men and to just talk about various subjects. So I want to commend you on that.
Thank you, sir.
My background is sports, man. I mean,
right. Sports and more sports.
Yeah, I have a picture. I was just looking at. Hold on. I got to put this picture out. Just saw it. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, can you see this? Can you see this picture?
I can't go up a little bit. Yeah, I can see it now. Is that you?
That's me. That's me. That's me. I was my wife and I were in the office today, and we were talking about this. Is Glynn Blackwell, 1968. I'm telling on my age. I'm 2 years old, right? And I'm out of the womb, man. My uncle is Reggie McKenzie. He's a former offensive guard. He played at the University of Michigan with the Bo Schembechler era. Then he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 1972, and he blocked for O.J. Simpson. And so my uncle introduced me to football and sports. And so that's a part of who I am. I'm from Highland Park, graduated in 1984. Received a basketball scholarship to the University of Illinois after playing for under Lou Henson and a whole bunch of great Fighting Illini teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had a tryout with the Seattle Supersonics in '88. Yep, that was '88. Didn't make the team. Coach Bickerstaff. I spent 6 months with the team, and it was a great experience. Coach Bickerstaff, who was a coach at the time, wanted me to go and play in Yakima, Washington. I don't even know if anybody know what Yakima, Washington is. And,
Right, I
and
don't.
when he said that to me, and I said, Yakima, Washington, where is that? And it's in Washington. But I told him, I said, Coach, you know what? I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm gonna go back to school and get my degree. That was one of the, I say that's my top 5 decisions. That was one of the top 5. My number one is accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. But
Oh yeah, facts on
you know
that.
what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
But that was a top 5 decision because I went back to school, got my degree. And as soon as I was finished my degree, man, a good friend of mine, my teammate, asked me to go overseas and play over in Turkey. And that's where I was able to play 8 years of basketball, traveling the world, man. My first year, Turkey, Greece, the Philippines, Mexico, 2 years in Cyprus, Estonia. So, you know, God just allowed me to see the world, see cultures, and gain a new perspective about, you know, people
Right.
and how to love people and accept people and cultures and all of those different things. So, and then, of course, my beautiful wife, Jillian Blackwell, we've been married for 20, this will be 25 years coming this August. And we have
Nice.
three, yeah, we have three boys. Mackenzie, 19, he plays basketball at OCC with the legendary Antoine Jobert.
Oh yeah.
My son Jonathan Blackwell is a junior at Brother Rice. Top 5. They probably ranked number 2.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah,
Last time I saw it, I think they were either 2 or 3 on there.
yeah. They lost a game in overtime last night in Grand Rapids. That was a great game,
It was a
man.
great
Great
game.
atmosphere. Oh man, 3,000 plus. It was great.
Yeah.
And then my youngest is Robert Blackwell, who's an 8th grader who at Berkshire Middle School in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little intro to who I am.
Well, listen, well, before we even move further, if anybody have a chance out here, man, go Google this guy, Glynn Blackwell, and go look at some basketball clips, man. This guy was a baller. He's very modest and and all that, but I had a chance to look at some videos, and the dude can actually go, which explains why his sons are all so good as well. Uh, but let's jump into that coaching. 3 boys all play basketball. You've seen all types of coaches, and I'm sure you've seen them all playing as much basketball as you has. What type of coaching style do you use? Like, what is your What is and you know, I'm not talking about your sons, but I'm just saying, like, what is that coaching style that you would use, you know, for your sons?
Well, you know, if my sons tell it, man, I'm just I'm not bearable, you know, like they just but the style that I use, to be honest with you, it has it's always been that of encouraging.
Yeah.
You know, you know, like to motivate, I like to encourage. And so, you know, but over time frame that have changed, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in terms of, you know, based on just things that I've studied, coaches
Mm-hmm.
that I've studied,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course, as you noted, you know, being involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes,
Yep.
and so that has helped my mindset in terms of coaching. Transformational coaching is really what I look at.
Okay.
How do I transformational coaching? And because but I don't coach now, but I train. I like to train coaches. Being my background of being an athletic administrator for almost 20 plus years, In the city of Highland Park, I was the after school coordinator. That was a title, but we had coaches that we had to train. And then I was at Word of Faith, their ministry, Faith Christian Academy, and then of course spent 13 years at Franklin Road Christian School, which is now Novi Christian Academy.
Yeah.
And so being able to study coaches and just really working with the coach has been part of my DNA.
Yeah.
And so to get back to your question, what style of coach am I? I like to be considered a transformational coach. I like to be able to ask myself or ask the coaches, what is your why in coaching? Why do you coach? And so oftentimes when I ask that question, that coach perhaps may pause, because most coaches, their why is to win championships. I want to, win, 10 championships. Like, I want to be like the John Wooden to win 10 in a row. I want to be like,
Right.
And championships are hard to come by,
Right. Yep.
as a coach and even as a player.
Yeah.
So that leads to, what is your why in coaching? And so, of course, Billy Graham, his famous quote says that coaches, they have more impact, right? They have more impact in a year than the average person would in a lifetime.
I know.
When a kid comes home and says, "Mommy, Daddy, Coach said this, Coach said that."
Yep.
And so, coach is a significant occupation in our land, in our culture.
Yeah. Yep.
The root word from coach, not the root word, but the mindset of a coach is when you think of a coach carriage, a carriage coach that horses and buggy, a horse would take a carriage,
Yep.
but the coach, right? The pitcher,
Yep.
if you can imagine a coach with carrying people. Well, what does it do? What does it do? It takes people to a destination. You start here and you end here. So what are coaches going to, what journey, coach, are you taking these players that you've been entrusted to? What I'm saying? So are you taking them on a journey that's all about just trying to win championships? Are you taking them on a journey that's allowing them to become young men or young men of God, if you're coaching in a Christian school, or depending upon, what what you believe.
Right.
So at FCA, what we do, we have one of our tools is called 3-dimensional coaching. And so what that mindset or what that framework looks like is we challenge the coaches and we talk to them about, okay, not being able to just coach in one dimension, but to be able to coach in 3 dimensions. And the first dimension is the reason why each coach is hired, whether you coach lacrosse, basketball, baseball, soccer, football, whatever it is, you're being hired because you know the game, the X's and O's of the sports that I just referenced. But then the second dimension is, how do you motivate? How do you motivate your coaches? Or how do you interact with how do you, as a coach, how do you motivate your players? How do you motivate your players? How do you interact? How do you deal with the emotional sides? And what we've found is sometimes coaches will have a second dimension problem, but use a first dimension solution. So in other words, to give an example, a kid comes in late 3 times out of the week. Of course, you and I, when we was growing up, if you late, get on the baseline, right?
I was gonna say, you running, baby.
You running, baby. But nowadays with mental health, and nowadays with depression and all of the different things, why is this okay? Why is Johnny? Why is Billy? Why is little Glynn? Why is he late? What's going on with him? So we're trying to get coaches to examine the reason that this individual is not motivated. For what reason? Mom and dad could have divorced. Mom and dad arguing, or somebody told them they're no good, or what's going on with that individual. And so
Right.
so we investigate. So once again, that's the second dimension. Then the third dimension is the character. you know what significance are you going to give that individual?
Yeah.
Because let's say you have 12 players on the team, and when we use basketball as an example, you have 5 that start. Okay, so how are you going to be able to show significance and value in the players 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12?
Right.
And what we do in the three-dimensional coaches, we show them Jesus as a leader. We show Jesus what he did with his 12 and how he spent time with his disciples, and we kind of parallel, what Jesus did with his 12 to how you can, what you can do with your 12 or 13 or 20 or whatever it is that you have as a coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to go back to the dimension 2 because I think this is probably where it gets the most trickiest for coaches because of the win factor.
Exactly.
The win factor, you have to, I think you really have to be conscious and intentional about tapping into, each one of your players emotionally. And a lot of coaches feel like they don't have to do that because I'm just a coach. And I'm telling you that, Glynn already said that, right? Your kids are coming home. I know my son does that. Coach said this, coach said, I need to do this. Coach said, and the thing is that you're saying all this need to, but then are you also being responsive to the emotions and the breakdowns and all of this stuff that comes along with you just spewing out all of this? I need you to be. And like you said, you never take time out to dig out, what their family life is about. Every kid can't take hard knocks information, but most coaches just go, hey, this is me. This is how I am. Deal with it. And it's like, you can, but then you need to have a full team of guys who can just take that style, right? Like you can look at Coach Izzo, the way that he coaches, he's an up in your face, personal type coach. Like right in your face. He's right on those kids. He's banging them around. Sit down. He doesn't care if you're the top player on this team. Your butt will sit down if you do something that he doesn't like. Then you have some
Right.
coaches who just kind of cater to kids who supposed to be the kid on the team with no repercussions. Well, I think that it's okay, but you're also setting that kid up for a big fall
Yep.
as he continued to grow in that sport and in his own personal life, right? Because it's kind of like it's like a false sense
Mm-hmm.
um of you're the man. It's a false sense of that. You feel like you are, but you find out at every level it's always 100 people better than you, and then you're starting all over. So I think that that's the part I like about you guys having three-dimensional, because a lot of coaches, just from my experience over the last 12 years with my son, have a majority of those coaches, besides 2 coaches that I know that my son has been under. I'm not going to name any names and all that stuff, but I'm just saying operated in a three-dimensional or a two-dimensional state. And everybody else was just one-dimensional. It's just win, 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 win. And if you can't get me the win, then go sit down and I'm going to get somebody else to give me the win. And all along, you're destroying these kids, because whether this kid want to go professional or not, you still have this great impact. Like you said, the impact in 1 year from a coach, that's like I mean, that's a big statistic, dude, to have for a coach to have an impact in one year and more than you can have in a lifetime. Like that's pretty grand. And I think that I like, and me and you, we've talked about what FCA brings to the table. And so that's why I said that you had to come on here, because in my circle, we both have all these coaches and stuff. And I think that the coaches just kind of need to hear that there's, two more things that you need to add to coaching that will actually help you in those wins. Because you can have all the wins you want and then produce bad kids who still got bad character and they can only
Yeah.
play basketball. And you really don't want that, right? So my thing is that transition us over into the passion that you have for um, the coaches understanding the kids better, like that passion from you. Because I mean, like I said, you have 3 boys that play. And so that's 3 different coaches that you got to worry about as a dad who's in a position of wanting coaches to be in a 3-dimensional way. So you got 3 different coaches here. So talk about that passion that you have for correcting a lot of those, win mistakes. All I want to do is win.
Well, I I got a lot of thoughts in my mind.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw all of that
yeah,
at you.
no, it's all good. It's all good. So I'm gonna use let's use Brother Rice. Coach Rick Palmer. He made a decision. He said, I want to sit down with you. He said, let's sit down and talk about 3-dimensional, coach. And he didn't know what to expect. Yeah. Not at all. You know what I'm saying? And he was doing it out of honor. Jonathan is on the team, and I started FCA. And to be honest with you, man, he and I sat down. It was my first time really going through the process with him. Mm-hmm. And we have a process which is called E3, engage, equip, and empower each coach. And so, as we're going through the process with the book, Coach Palmer came to the point. He said, you know what? I do desire to win a championship. That is every coach's. It is. That's real. So that's not what we're saying. Coach should not have a goal or yeah. But he said, I start seeing the difference now. And he started getting a revelation, like the second dimension is so vital.
It's so vital.
It's so vital because here he has at least 4 Division I players
right
on his team in his starting 5, and they all want to be significant.
Right.
They all, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They all want to be significant. And so he had to find a way to motivate every one of those players in their own way.
Yep.
And so
get to the common goal.
to reach the common goal.
Common goal, yeah.
Yeah. So let's use Jonathan. Let's use Jonathan Blackwell. He's coming from Novi Christian Academy, where he was like a top scorer. He averaged at least 15 shots a game. He was averaging 20 points a game. And so you're going into an environment, you're going from a Class D school to a Class A school. So the pool is bigger. The expectations are not necessarily the expectations are going to be higher.
Right.
The competition is going to be even stronger. So I said to him, hey man, you probably not going to average 20 a game like that. You got Kurt, X, Henry.
Right, you got 3 other dudes.
You got 3 other dudes. You got 3 other dudes. I said, right. So you're gonna have to, make a sacrifice. And so he understood that. And so, okay, fast forward to maybe 10 games into the season last year. And remember, we started in February. We didn't even have
a full season, right?
We didn't have a full season, nor did we have a summer.
Yep.
So Jonathan now is being asked to be the point guard, and and I know Jonathan likes to get buckets, right?
He likes to get the buckets, baby.
He likes to get buckets. So, but he's capable of bringing the ball down, distribute, facilitating, and all of that, right? And so we're talking about the second dimension. How do you motivate, and how do you deal with the emotions of your player?
Yeah.
So I remember we had just played Catholic Central. We won. And Jonathan, he got in the car and he was like, man, he was emotional. He's like, man, Dad, it just seemed like, man, I don't get a chance to shoot. It just seemed like they don't see me. He was really confused. He was like, what's my role? What's my role? How am I significant? And so his counterpartners, Kurt Williams, I think averaging about 16 a game. And then X is averaging about 15, 16 a game. I'm not sure what Henry was averaging. And Blackwell was probably averaging about 10 a game, something like that. And so I called Coach. I said, Coach, because now Coach and I, we dealing with this
right
three dimensions. I say he's so coach said, he said, I got you. So coach set up a time, Coach Palmer set up a time with Blackwell, and he showed him how significant he is.
Yeah.
What he did, he it wasn't about X's and O's.
Right.
It wasn't about come on, let's go watch this film. What he told Jonathan is, he said, Jonathan, first of all, Curtin X averaged 16 and 15 points a game. How do you think they're averaging that from you?
How do you think right, exactly. How do you think that they're capable of doing that? Right.
Because it's you are connected to it. You are
Right.
connected to it
That's good stuff.
because so he showed him his turnover ratio to assist, his assist to turnover ratio. It was
Yes.
very low. He said,
Yeah.
look at this. He showed him that you're shooting 50%. You're shooting 50% from the 3-point. You're the best 3-point shooter on the team. You're shooting
Right.
50%. And then he showed him some other things. It just that's second dimension stuff.
Yeah. It opened up that, I'm sure.
Yes, and so that was a way of motivating him. So these, to answer your question, I gave you that long example.
No, that was really good. I think it explained it. That was good.
Yes, so
That was
that's where the second dimension.
yeah.
The third dimension, of course, is now how do you leave a legacy, coach, with
Yeah.
your players? Because we ask the coaches if they've coached over 10 years, maybe 15 years, we ask them this question. After 5 or 10 years, who's coming back to see you?
Right.
Who's in your, how are you impacting their lives? You'll know the fruit after 5 or 10 years down the road,
Yep.
because how you impacted them
Yep.
during your tenure with them
Yep.
is going to tell you what legacy you're going to leave.
Yeah.
And every coach that coaches wants to be remembered by their players.
They do. I definitely agree. That's why I said that three-dimensional piece, man, is it's very important. And I think that it was really great to be able to see Coach Palmer be able to see that dimension too. Was like a wow moment. Like, man, that is the most, winning is everybody. I mean, that's why, we said that, which is every coach, of course, whether you got a great team or not, wants to win. But then when you move into that number 2 dimension and 3, now you're starting to create the possibility to actually have the wins. Because,
You got it.
yeah, because basically, dude, you can take a team that don't have any 5-star players on there. And if you can motivate these guys and get them on the same page, they become dangerous. I'm not saying that they can actually win a championship, but it's not off the table. I mean, go take the Detroit Pistons, right?
Exactly.
No 5-star NBA player on the team, a bunch of throwback guys that they put on the team. I mean, Rip Hamilton might have been, if you want to say, the biggest star we had on the team, and that's basically because he could just shoot the ball like crazy, right? But there were a bunch of throwbacks. Isaiah Thomas and Joe Marsden were throwbacks. Even though these guys were awesome in college, they didn't have the legacy names like the Michael Jordan, Larry Birds, and Matt. They didn't have that. They just kind of came in, but it was the number 2. Everybody understood their role. Everybody understood what we mean to each other when we're playing. And that seems like that's the hardest part. Especially like having a son that's, at a 4-star and working towards being a 5-star by the time he graduates. It's taking a kid like that knows that I can bring all of this to the table, but you only asking me to bring this much to the table because over here you needed to be the big piece of pie. Over here we got enough fillers, so you only need to be a slice of the pie. You know what I'm saying? It's like we got 19, right. we got 8 guys over here, and then 4 of these guys can fill up basically all the spots. But I love that Jonathan was able to understand and really be able to see and witness that dimension too. That's why I said it really wasn't lengthy. It was probably the best description that you can give from an excellent basketball player who wants to play at the next level in college, who felt even after a win. Isn't that crazy? So you get the win, and your players can still walk away as if they didn't even contribute. And that's when you do have to be able to lock in as a coach and go, oh, bro, well, he made 9 threes. Well, you had four of those assists that he got to make 9 threes came from you. You see what I'm saying? And now you go back and go, well, man, you're right. I did give him those because you forget, no, assists are great, but people don't remember assists, right? Just like people don't really remember steals. We really only remember the buckets we made. And it's like, I didn't make any buckets. And it's like, dude, you had 4 steals, you had 7 assists, you had 5 deflections. See, deflections is something that a coach will have to tell you that you did because you won't never remember that. Because all you equating every time you step on that court is getting these buckets. So I really like the whole FCA, the whole thing behind it, and even the more we talking about it again, I just really like that, and I'm happy that you even brought that to me to talk about it, so that we can actually even come on here to discuss it, because it's very important that people that we give, all this time training sessions and weekend practices and early morning practices. Your kids are flying all over the place to go be with somebody, and you really want them to understand that three-dimensional. As a parent, I do. I don't want you just to have my son out here just to get wins. I want him to be able to understand if he got a bad game to himself, what can you point out to him to tell him that it wasn't as bad as you thought it was because you still impacted in these areas. Man, that right there is just paramount. You got anything else you want to add to it before we
Yeah,
cut it
yeah. I
down?
just want to, yeah, I want to clarify too that the book is a lot of coaches do have it in them,
Yeah.
and the book is really just I want to clarify that not that this book is the end all. It's a great book, but it's having them be intentional
Exactly.
about thinking more second dimension
Yep.
than the X and O's, and have them being intentional about down the road, the
Yep.
character, the legacy, and having those individual teammates be significant. That's how Jesus looked at it. You think about it. When he had his 12,
Mm-hmm.
you can imagine. There's the picture. The picture of at the Great Supper,
Right.
all 12 of them sitting down. Think about all 12 of them sitting down at this restaurant. Peter, James, John, Matthew, all of them. You know, we see it from Scripture as if they didn't have any problems at all.
We
But we
spiritualize
know,
it. We
yeah,
spiritualize it all.
yeah, we
These are regular
spiritualize it
guys.
all. Yeah, but think about it. Judas was a part of that. So Jesus had to make sure that every individual,
Right.
John talks about it, how John, he describes that he loved me the most,
Right.
right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
Matthew, all of them have their had their time.
Right.
And so one of the ways that one of the things we talk to the coaches about is know your turf. That's one of the
Yeah.
chapters. Know your turf. In other words, know your players.
Right.
Know who you
That's
have.
good.
Know every person that's on your team. Know their characteristics. Know everything, because you may not be able to do one thing. Jesus took a look on the mountain of transfiguration. He didn't take all 12, did he?
No, you couldn't do it.
No, he you see what I'm
He,
saying? So
yeah, he had to take only. He only had to take with the special ones, as
yeah,
John would say.
yeah. So you know what I'm saying? So anyway, man, just the book is making coaches be intentional. It's a lot of the coaches that I've dealt with in my short period of time of being with FCA, they got the goods, and I'm just encouraging them to pull it out, help pull it out, help them see themselves as dynamic coaches, because like you said, they are coaching our children,
Yeah,
and they coaches, sports coaches play a significant role in our culture of today.
they do. And I think that we really we know they do. But I think that you said the word, the most powerful word, which is being intentional,
Mhm.
in all three aspects, of every athlete. And does that take time? Yes. Is it a little unorthodox? Yes. Does it hurt because I gotta get to know you? yes, you can't just only get to know the 5-star guy. You got to get to know the guy that's a freshman who literally is just trying to get on the team. He barely made it on the team,
Right.
but you still need to get with him and be able to encourage him because, like you said, the 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th player, these are your guys that's going to help the legacy.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
know,
we have a chapter called anger management, right? And I was doing it with one coach, and when he, what I asked the coaches to do is I asked them, because sometimes we do a seminar, or we do a one-on-one, and I asked this one particular coach, he you review it before we get together, you know what I'm saying? I asked you to read it and so forth. And so this coach said, man, this chapter here, man, it saved me, man, because I was ready to kill this one player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, man, he said that it taught me that I have to get out of my little comfort zone and reach out a little bit more, man. So
it becomes
anyway.
uncomfortable.
Yes.
One of Q's coaches when he was younger, is probably, I definitely would say that who Q is today as a player and even as a person, this particular coach, Darrell Hudson, played a significant role in mastering those 3-dimension pieces before I even really, I knew they were there, but I didn't put a name to each one of them. But now that we talk about this, Darrell Hudson basically mastered those 3 things as a coach when Quentin was with him when he was younger. And really named his basketball, the first AAU team that Quentin played for with him was called Team Overlooked. And it was a bunch of the players he went after were players that were overlooked on other teams that were good, but the coach just just overlooked them. This is my guy here, and so I'm not gonna play you. And man, we ended up having, that his AAU program grew, but it was all development. So his coaching style was development, more like Steve Kerr, where it's like I can sit all my 5 and my 7 starters, and I can play with my from 8 to 13 are going to play tonight, and we're going to still beat you. That's a whole different type of coaching style, and you got to understand the 3-dimensional pieces to be able to go down your line. Like if you go walk into Brother Rice, and that's dude, and you guys walk in, and he say, yeah, and John say, man, Dad, I'm not even playing tonight. Coach is letting 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 play tonight, and you'll be thinking, well, what is he doing? What is this? What is this? And if the guys come out there and they win, then you'd be like, well, what was that all about? And the coach was like, well, they got to play sometime. When do you actually get time to play? We are trying to win, but I still have an obligation to these other kids to develop them. And that's the part I think that the FCA will open up coaches to be intentional about, is that, man, I still have, because once you start talking to kids and actually getting more personal with them, you start understanding I have an obligation to you to actually make sure that you're successful at this. Not wait till after all my starters are gone, and now next year you get here, and then now we got to start all over from scratch, right? It's like you could be doing that all while you're going. Some teams that you play that are really not that good. I'm sorry, every team is not a beast, So this is a team where I might be able to play 3 freshmen in the lineup, and we're going to get them ready to rock and roll, because that when you're doing for this championship, if one of your best guys go down, then it's the next man up. And so how do you prepare that guy if you haven't gotten to dimensional 2, and then dimension 3 is what your legacy is going to be, is what type of coach were you? Like I look at Steve Kerr and say, this dude can quit right now, and he's going to go down as one of the greatest coaches that ever coached, and he hasn't even coached that long.
Yeah.
And I put him right next to Popovich, just because of the way that he can develop underdeveloped players in a short amount of time to become stars. And, that's fantastic to be able to do. So I like, even like with, Coach Palmer being able to take a call from you and to be able to reach in and to grab, Jonathan, and to bring that mental back to where he can get him to, because we still got to win. So you can have this little low, but we're going to talk about it and get you back because we got another challenge. And I don't know if y'all guys know, but Catholic division is a rowdy division. I don't know if y'all got many bad teams in that division. Everybody go go go. So
Nah,
um,
man, it's
it
brutal. It's I think we're in first place. No, we're in second place. I think UD is 4-2, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
They might be 5-2.
okay,
Then we're 3-3. Orchard Lake is 3-3 or 4-3. Catholic Central or De La Salle is 3-3, and Catholic Central I think is 2-4.
yeah.
So everybody got everybody got 2 losses at least.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That lets you know that it's a competitive division, and so I think that all of these dimensions are going to have to take place because each one of those teams have at least 2 or more 4 or 5-star players on those teams who are going to go play at the next level. So those coaches got they got their challenge out there before them. But what I want to say is that people like Glynn and his entire team, the FCA team, is there. So I'm just, wanted to put this podcast out there, and we'll have more conversations around FCA because that book has so many things that we can dive into and talk about, I'm sure. And so we might have to do some dissecting because that anger, man, I would love to hear what that whole chapter has to talk about the anger part. Just to kind of to go into that piece, on one of these episodes, because you hear a lot of swearing and all of that out there, and it's like, is this the right approach or is it not a right approach? I can't tell you, you know what I'm saying? But I think that if we could talk about it, and maybe the next time we hook up, we'll get a couple of, current coaches to join
Yes,
us. Maybe I'll try
that
to get
that would
that.
be ideal.
Yeah. So I got a couple of guys I know you got, maybe we can get Coach Palmer to come. Maybe we get some current coaches. Come on, man. And then we start tearing this apart so the health of our kids, whether they go on to play in the next level or they go off. My son wants to go be a doctor. You see what I'm saying?
Right,
But I still think as a coach, you still should be depositing stuff in him. So when he leaves, even from you, that going to be a doctor should be a A1 goal because I don't just basketball. I preach success across the board. And I think that if we start dissecting this every month or something like that, man, and get these coaches involved, coach talk, I don't know, something, man, we can really, take the FCA and then start kind of spreading around because a lot of coaches may not even know about this program. But I think if I put you on here and we add 2 or 3 coaches on here and keep inviting them all on, I think that it'll be an easier tool to put that 3-dimensional coach along with the other things that you guys have in place in front of them. So
yeah,
um,
and half the time, I just want to be honest. A lot of coaches when they hear Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the first thing they think is, "Oh, he's getting ready to come beat me up with the Bible."
Bible,
You know what I mean? And
right,
that's not
right,
that's not what
right,
ultimately that is our mission, and our vision and mission is for athletes and coaches to have a growing relationship with Jesus Christ.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong. Let's not, that's who we are and what we like to
right,
do. But we're more than just that. We want to help
right,
teams and help build culture. You know what I'm
right,
saying? We love sports. You know what I'm
right,
saying? We love sports, but we're not going to let sports be the number one thing
right,
in our lives. We're trying to show coaches and athletes where the balance is.
yeah,
And so that's where we probably get a lot of, kickback and totally understand because but they don't understand, they don't know, the revelation is
yeah,
man, God has so much in store that
yeah,
exceedingly abundantly above what they can
yeah,
ask or think, man.
yeah.
Don't get me started on that, man.
Well,
Boy, I
I
tell
think,
you.
and then also I just think that also when you have a conversation about it, it's a little bit different than saying, "Hey, come and check this out." So I think that's why I said we try to put it together where we have just a couple of coaches come on, and then we talk about 3-dimensional coaching,
Right.
and then we get their perspective around 3-dimensional. Why is it all about the win? Do you connect here? Why don't you connect there? And then that door opens up like how you did with Coach Palmer. it opens up a door to them to go, well, man, I mean, I do, but I may not be as intentional as I may need to be. And that's all we want. We just
Right.
want
You
we just
just
want the spark
exactly.
of intentionality, which is, you know what, I could be better. Like I I'm good, but I could actually be better. Once we get on that side of the platform, now we're about to build a culture, and once we get that culture together, now character can start to shine. And of course, once we get the character, then it's all about Christ, right? Because that's how we change the whole deal. But you're right, we're not trying to slap you in the face with the word of God, but you are getting raked over by the principles of Christ, and understand that Christ's way of character is the only way that you can stay intentional.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
If you link it into Christ's way of character and how we should govern ourselves, then you will always be intentional about service. Because as a coach, you're still in service. Those players are not serving you; you're actually serving them. And so that's what we, want to get. But I don't want to go over our time too much, and then I don't want to talk too much past, because I want us to be able to come back and still be able to dive more into this. Uh, Man, Glynn, thank you very much for
Yes,
joining
sir.
me this
Yes,
evening,
sir.
man. Taking time away from the fam. Um, and Listen, let's try to hook it back up again. Put something together. Now, if you guys want to check out this, um, uh, the 3-dimensional training and coaching and all that kind of stuff, you guys can go to fca.org, and you can look at some of the material that they have on the website. You can always email me at qcrumbie, the number 2 at gmail.com. I can get you guys in contact with Blackwell if you guys want to talk to him personally, and we can always connect you guys with him. But we just want to kind of spread a little bit of word around, just the great impact that coaches have with our children, and just making sure that they're touching all parts of them, mentally, emotionally, all of
Right.
that stuff. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so definitely share this video, the podcast, with many of your coaching friends, players, whatever, and see if we can just kind of help make it a little bit easier for our kids out there. And this is your boy Q, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.